As the electric vehicle revolution grows in the U.S., there will be important changes along the highway corridors. My World 2's Nick Schmitz learns what it will take to keep us all charged up and on the road.
Chris, this is a really impressive facility. Can you talk to me a little bit about this building and what goes on in here?
So this is the Hill Engineering Research and Development Center. And the idea behind it is for students to work on innovative projects looking at sustainable future. There are no offices for faculty in here. It's purely for students to work on the next generation of technologies, everything from electric vehicles to biodiesel combustion, electric bikes, but really helping students perform and create these innovative projects that help us in the next generation of these sustainable technologies. So we've had a number of different projects through the years looking at electric bikes to looking at electric vehicles. Here was the first vehicle that we did, which was a plug-in series hybrid electric vehicle that ran on biodiesel, and we created it out of a 1974 Volkswagen Super Beetle to kind of show the sustainability aspect. The idea really revolves around people, prosperity, and the planet, and the goal of students to get engaged in these type of activities so that they can go off in industry and help lead innovation in these areas.
Now, I know you did a study on electric vehicles and charging anxiety. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Sure. The funded study by the Kansas Department of Transportation was looking to see how electric vehicles actually work on the Kansas-centric roads. So understanding, rain, snow, wind, the wind direction on these roads, and how commercial EVs will actually work. What we started with was essentially a model that matched the EPA predicted range of vehicles. And then from that, we said, okay, how are they going to perform in January if they're heading west on I-70? How are they going to perform, north heading on I-35 in July? So what is the impact on their range with respect to air conditioning, heating? Is it raining outside? How cold? What's the wind blowing? And really, we saw a dramatic difference depending on the time of year based on these vehicles when they're traveling at these higher speeds on the interstates. We saw up to a 40 or a 50% reduction in range of the electric vehicles on these highway roads. You're driving around city and you're using EVs to their maximum capabilities with the stop and go driving and the regenerative braking, you can get very close to the EPA stated range. But if you need to travel to the airport on highways and you're traveling at 75 miles per hour and you turn on the heating, you're going to see a dramatically reduced range. And that is something that I've experienced firsthand since I drive an electric vehicle. And taking my dad to the airport over Thanksgiving, I saw a significant reduction.
So it would seem to me the way that consumers think about electric vehicles has to be a little bit different than the way we think about gas-powered vehicles. The way we charge, the way we can travel in them, is that sort of what your study is showing?
I think consumers are not used to a kind of different mentality, a different mindset when it comes to electric vehicles. Just the difference between filling up at a gas station and putting gas in for 5 minutes versus essentially being able to charge at home overnight. You might have to do a little bit more planning when it comes to trips and a little bit more planning when it comes to maybe your daily commute in regards to, hey, I just have to make sure that I plug in my vehicle at night, or maybe I need to find a fast charger midway through the week to make sure that the range actually reflects my actual driving profile.
Several of the major auto manufacturers have announced that they have plans to stop selling internal combustion engine cars, gas-powered cars by, I think it's 2040. So as we're making this shift, as we're being told that we're going to be making this shift to electric vehicles, what do we need to be doing? What do we need to be planning for in order to sort of make a smooth transition?
Well, I think we really have to plan for more education of the consumers. First adopters with regards to electric vehicles are going to just accept them as is. They're the ones that are really interested in the technology, really want to see it basically blossom in the world. It's the typical consumer, that second generation that's going to purchase these EVs, have to be more well educated in regards to what their capabilities are.
We've been driving electric vehicles now for 2 years.
We have 2 electric cars in our family, and most of all, it just makes us feel really good that we're making the best choice for the environment, making the most sustainable choice, and it just so happens that we're making the most fun driving choice, the most convenient choice for us.
The idea that you could get something that's good for the environment, but also going to be lower maintenance, fun to drive, things like that was very appealing.
my wife and I bought a diesel back in the day, and diesel is not readily available at every gas station. So we had to plot and plan on our trips to basically figure out where we need to fill up the diesel vehicle. So if you plot and plan, I think you can make the range of these EVs really work to your benefit when you're talking about this traveling aspect.
Yeah, one of the things that strikes me is the difference in the efficiency. With a gas car, you're used to getting less mileage in the city when start and stop traffic, but when you get out on the highway, you're going to get more bang for your buck. But it's the opposite with an electric vehicle. Is that correct? That the start and stop, they're very, very efficient, but when you're going in a straight line at 80 miles an hour, you're really draining that battery.
Exactly, and so that's why many people have theorized that the internal combustion engine isn't going to go away. The Department of Energy predicts by 2040 we're still going to be driving a large percentage of our vehicles with combustion engines. It's because of that efficiency. Internal combustion engines, very efficient at higher speeds, higher loads. Electric vehicles, more efficient at lower speeds, lower loads. And so if you look towards the future, my prediction would see that we're going to be driving a lot of hybrids. Essentially, everyone will be driving at least a hybrid in the future. And electric vehicles will be part of that mix. The combustion engine, unfortunately, we don't believe is going to go away. There's still a lot of innovation that can be done. And what you talked about, that marriage between the efficiency of the engine and the efficiency of the electric vehicle and the battery pack, and marrying that is where these hybrids, I think, we'll see a lot more in the future.
So Chris, as we make this transition, what are some of the challenges that we're going to face? I immediately think of the lithium-ion batteries, that there's a lot that goes into creating just the batteries for these cars, let alone the cars themselves.
Yeah, so the mining of lithium, the mining of the other metals involved, like cobalt and nickel, that are in these highly reactive batteries that we need for electric vehicles is going to be a significant environmental challenge in the future to make sure we do it cleanly. There's actually something called embodied emissions, which are the emissions that are generated in essentially the construction of the vehicle. And there's studies that have shown that when you construct these electric vehicles, it actually takes more energy and more emissions than a conventional internal combustion engine. Now, you make up for that if you drive the vehicle for a long enough time. But if everyone went out and bought an electric vehicle today, then we might actually make the problem worse just from those embodied emissions perspective.
Tammy, where are we right now?
We are at the 24/7 travel store in McPherson, Kansas. They are one of the groups that we've worked with to expand alternative fuel adoption throughout the state of Kansas.
And why is McPherson an important place to have a set of these chargers?
We're right here on I-135. We're right on the exit. And this is a key corridor between Wichita, Kansas, which is the largest city in Kansas, and I-70. So having this charging station here helps to connect that population, about 500,000 people in the Wichita metro, up to I-70 and then points east and west from there.
And I-70 is a corridor straight across America, correct? From
Right.
Baltimore to the edge of Utah.
Right.
So if you've got an electric car in Wichita and you need to get to I-70, this is a key junction for you.
We need that kind of connection for all the towns spread out. I mean, not just the major towns, all the little towns in western Kansas, up in, the mountain towns in, the northern U.S. We've got to have this set up so that people can travel between those locations.
Tammy, how much does it cost to get one of these installed?
It varies a lot depending on how close you are to the infrastructure. You have to get a lot of power here. It's not just like plugging in a regular appliance. And so it's going to vary a lot with the installation depending on how close you are to adequate power. And if you have to install all of that, what we call behind the meter, that costs a lot more. KDOT, in their recent Volkswagen funding opportunity, they're allowing $150,000 for a setup like this where there's 2 chargers.
We're hearing a lot from the car manufacturers that they're all making this push. We're going electric vehicles. So what's it going to take for this country to be prepared for that so that we can fuel up these cars once everybody's driving these electric vehicles?
It's going to take a lot more locations like this. It's going to be a little bit different. I mean, we're familiar with the paradigm of fueling with liquid fuels, and there's gas stations everywhere. We won't probably need quite as many chargers as we have gas stations, because you can charge your vehicle at home. As a matter of fact, that's where most of the charging is done. But in order to be able to travel long distances, we've got to have this charging equipment. The Federal Highway Administration, they recommend you have it every 50 miles. That's because you can't necessarily, even though a range might be 200 miles, you're not going to get that when you're driving on the highway. So they want them closer together. So we need to get that set up everywhere, and not just the interstates. I mean, it needs to be on, the state highways. That way it enables people to travel from city to city.
The main thing that people are always asking us are, well, where do you charge? Thinking that they need to panic, but it's just changing your mindset. Like, if you had your own gas station in your garage, would you ever choose to go out to a gas station in the middle of the freezing cold and get out there and pump gas? No, you would just do it in the comfort of your own garage. Chargers are popping up everywhere. There's ChargePoint, the ChargePoint network, Electrify America. Tesla has its own supercharger network that is adding new superchargers stations every minute.
I drive a smaller electric SUV, and with the range that we get, I only have to charge maybe twice a week, depending on how far I'm going. Just around Lee Summit, I go maybe 30 miles a day, and we get 100, 150 miles range. So it's really convenient. When we do have to charge, we just pull right in our garage, plug it in, and it charges without us even knowing.
Chris, what was the major catalyst for this shift from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles? Is it primarily the emission standards? Is it the environmental impact?
Well, the environmental impact is definitely a factor, but I would say it was the quantum leap in battery technology. Toyota Prius came out with their hybrid, and they used nickel metal hydride batteries, and they worked well from a hybrid perspective. But then when lithium-ion batteries really made that leap to the next generation of technology, that people really started to see the capabilities of these batteries to handle a heavy vehicle and have it on the road. So I'd say lithium-ion batteries making that technological leap really was the impetus behind our growth in electric vehicles on the road today.
So you'd say that 10, 15 years ago, these vehicles wouldn't have even been possible because we didn't have the technology?
I would say that's pretty much true. The lithium-ion batteries, just within the last couple of years, not to mention the last 15 years, have grown by leaps and bounds and do make it capable that you can drive a 4,000, 5,000 vehicle around and get a good range out of it.
Tammy, it's really exciting to see these sort of things being built, to come to some place like McPherson, Kansas, and see this and see that if I can bring my electric vehicle and charge it here. It seems to me, though, that this is a big process, and there's a lot of these that need to be out there in order to make this work. What is it going to take for us to have these everywhere that we need them?
In order to facilitate travel across country, we're going to need to have a lot more of these than we currently have. And it's going to take a lot of work from a lot of people. There's nonprofits like us who are working to give access to grant funding in order to be able to install these. It's going to take great corporate entities like 24/7 working with us to install these at their fueling locations. We're going to have input from the vehicle manufacturers. A lot of them have already said by 2030, 2035, 2040, all their vehicles are going to be electric. And so a lot of them are putting some work into the infrastructure. And quite frankly, I mean, it's going to take some input from the government, the federal government. If you kind of remember the rural electrification that went in the 40s to make sure that rural areas had just access to electricity, it's going to take a similar push in order to get enough infrastructure out there for the vehicles to be able to fuel them and to be able to travel around the country. Regardless of how you feel about electric vehicles, they're coming. They're here for passenger vehicles. The vehicles are very much great to be used and drive around. We just need more infrastructure to be able to get them from, city to city and to be able to make long distance travel a lot more convenient.